Today, we're going to get into a fascinating paradox. It's the story of how some of the most serene, most beautiful stone carvings in Chinese history were born out of an era of almost unbelievable chaos. This is the art of the Southern dynasties. When you look at the art from this period, a few words just immediately jump out: dignified, elegant. Just take a look at the mythical beasts guarding the emperor's tombs. They aren't supposed to be scary or monstrous. Instead, they've got this incredible sense of order, a graceful, almost peaceful style. You can see it in the smooth lines, the refined forms. The whole feeling is one of just majestic calm. And that right there brings us to the big question, doesn't it? This art seems completely at odds with the world that actually made it. How, in an age defined by assassinations, civil war, and brutal invasions, could anyone create works of such tranquility and order? Well, let's figure it out. Okay, so to get this, we first have to understand the chaos part of the equation. To really appreciate the art, you have to get a feel for the sheer brutality of the times. The Southern dynasties, they lasted for about 170 years, but just look at this timeline. In that pretty short span, you've got 4 different dynasties: the Liu Song, the Southern Qi, the Liang, and the Chen. And guess what? None of them ended peacefully. I mean, imagine living through that. This constant violent turnover of power was just normal life. And the violence wasn't just political drama at the top. It was absolutely devastating for the people. This quote from the historian Sima Guang, wow, it describes what happened after an invasion from the rival Wei state in the north. It just paints this horrifying picture of total destruction where whole regions were completely wiped out. This was the world these artists were living in. And if you were at court, forget about it. The courts of the Southern dynasties were a total snake pit. Palace coups were common. Emperors were getting assassinated all the time, sometimes by their own sons. There was this one ruler, Emperor Ming of Liu Song, who was so paranoid he had almost all of his brothers and nephews executed. So the main takeaway here is, whether you were a farmer or a prince, your life was incredibly fragile. So, if the world was that violent and unstable, how in the world did this serene art come to be? Well, the answer, as it turns out, lies in 3 really powerful forces that were pushing back against all that chaos, shaping the very soul of these stone carvings. We're going to look at how a unique blend of spiritual beliefs gave the art its deep meaning, how a distinct cultural identity gave it its unique style, and how the raw need for political power gave it its purpose. The spiritual world of the Southern dynasties was so interesting because it wasn't just one religion. It was this amazing fusion of beliefs. Buddhism was taking off, so you see its symbols everywhere, like the lotus flower representing purity and rebirth carved right onto stone pillars. But at the same time, Taoist ideas about becoming immortal were hugely influential. And that's where these mythical stone beasts called qilin come in. They weren't just guardians. They were powerful symbols of the tomb owner's hope for an eternal life. Art was also a huge statement of identity. The Southern dynasties were in a constant struggle with rival dynasties up in the north. Now, Northern art was often described as majestic and powerful. It really reflected their warrior culture. So in response, the South developed a style that was deliberately different. Their art was all about being refined, elegant, and focused on formal beauty. It was a clear way of saying, we are different, we are more civilized. And this gets us to the most practical reason for all this art. It was a tool of power. Look, when your dynasty could be overthrown at any second, you desperately need to project an image of permanence, of legitimacy. By building these highly ordered, symmetrical, and grand tomb complexes, these rulers were making a powerful statement. They were basically screaming, we are in control, we are legitimate, even when their reality was anything but stable. But here's the thing. This art wasn't static. It actually changed and evolved over time, with each of those 4 dynasties leaving its own unique mark on the stone. Let's trace how that all unfolded. You can pretty much see a clear story here. The style starts out in the Liu Song dynasty, a little heavy, a little rough around the edges. Then it gets more refined and detailed under the Southern Qi. It hits its absolute peak during the Southern Liang. This is that mature, lifelike style we really associate with the era. And finally, as the Southern dynasties start to weaken economically under the Chen, the style simplifies. It becomes more practical, less decorative. So what is the legacy of these ancient stone guardians? I mean, how do we connect with this art that was born from such a wild time? all the way here in the 21st century. Well, thankfully, the powerful stories these stones tell of finding order in chaos, of art as a statement of identity and power, they are not being forgotten. In fact, modern technology is giving them a whole new life, letting us study them in ways that were just impossible before. Today, researchers are using things like high-precision 3D scanning and photography to create perfect digital copies of these sculptures. And that data is then used to build these incredible, immersive experiences in virtual and augmented reality. What that means is you can now explore these ancient mausoleum sites digitally, getting closer to the art than ever before, all without even leaving your house. It's a really powerful way to make sure their stories keep being told for generations to come. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The people of the Southern dynasties created serene art in a time of chaos as a way to project order, to claim an identity, and to hope for immortality. So, looking at our own, often turbulent world, what stories will the art we create today tell future generations about us?